So we're continuing our discussion on what is good, what is bad, and what is beyond good and bad. Good and bad is the creation of our mind.
Correct.
Our likes, dislikes. So those have temporary existence because mind itself is continuously changing. So as it keeps on changing, its likes and dislikes also keep changing. If you notice over the period of thousands of years, whatever we used to be considered as a norm is not accepted as a norm anymore. Somebody commits adultery, lynching was a normal practice. People would just come in the medieval times in Europe, or any kind of crime, the guy is put on this pedestal, and everybody stones him to death. Now it's a barbaric. So ideas change, thoughts change, feelings change. So the concepts about good and bad also change. So good and bad does not let you stay quietly because all those changes do not happen overnight. But at the same time, the change is happening all the time. So your mind, if it gets caught up in the good and bad, say you go into coma for 10 years and you wake up, all of a sudden everything has changed. Whatever was considered bad is considered good now. Whatever is considered good, all relatively, but it's a slow process. So if we remain caught up in this good and bad, we'll never have peace. Because something that is changing all the time cannot give you a permanent sense of happiness, permanent sense of peace. So coming out of the good and bad is a good thing. So
You contradict me.
right? So there is only one thing that's good is going to Paramatma. And there is only one bad thing in the world is staying away from Paramatma. That's it. Other than that, our conventional definitions of good and bad are just worth nothing, really. So good and bad is sansar. And sansar, along with the concepts of good and bad, sansar comes. Along with that, competition comes. There is suffering comes. There are transient, pleasures. Then there is long-term suffering. Then another transient pleasure. Then another suffering. Constant struggle at the physical level, at the mind level, and billions of thoughts continuously go in our mind to achieve things which we consider good at that moment. All of a sudden, 10, 15 years fast forward, and we don't care about that anymore. Or sometimes not even 10, 15 years, maybe 10 days. You buy a new car, and 2, 3 months later, you stop bragging about it because everybody else bought the same thing anyway. So you're really no different. And even if somebody didn't buy it, it stops giving you the same pleasure it did before you bought it. So this transient episodic joys and long-term sufferings and all these things is what sansar is about. And that's where we are caught up in the good and bad. Beyond good and bad is peace. There is tranquility, there is joy, and there is unlimited supply of satisfaction and happiness. That's what that's what lies beyond the ideas of good and bad. Like good and bad is sansar. Sansar is like pollution. And going beyond the good and bad is a breath of fresh air. As if you are caught up in all these pollutants, gases, and all of a sudden you go to the mountaintop and have a fresh breath of air. So all the knowledge about the world is avidya. But the real knowledge is the knowledge of the self. And that frees you from everything. All of a sudden your runs for different things and all your desires for different things start waning and fading away. And then for the first time you realize what you really are. And dropping of your identification with different objects of pleasure, it cuts down your ego and you have a breath of fresh air. The good and bad, there is a stinking smell. And going beyond good and bad is a breath of fresh air. Good and bad is marka fanda, like we talked before. As the fish is caught in the net, in the fisherman's net, and is trying to wiggle its way out, It's making efforts. You cannot say it's not making efforts. It wants to be free also. So we also want to be free. We want to possess something that gives us permanent pleasure. So our situation is just like the fish which is caught in the net. In every place it has choices to go this way or that way, keeps making choices. As it keeps making choices, it's getting caught more and more into the net, and not realizing, going backward within, retracing your step back into the water is the best way to do it. And jalasa is where you reach to the ultimate, your home. Jalasa is the water that the fish used to be. So going beyond good and bad is going back to jalasa, going back to your true nature, which suits you. This is what you are made up of, but we don't realize that. So Dvait is the duality that we're living in, and all those gives you the transient experiences, because Dvait itself is transient. Dvait itself has a temporary existence. Whatever is created, as soon as it's created, is going through transformation already, and it's just a matter of time before it will die or disappear, to be born again. So Dvait is nothing but transientness. And when we want a permanent pleasure from the transientness, we're gonna fail. It's like looking for sand in the oil. Looking for oil in the sand. The oil just does not exist. You have to crush peanuts or crush olives or whatever, but the oil is there. But you crush no matter how many times and how many years you spend hours and hours and hours trying to extract oil out of the sand. It's just not gonna happen. Nobody ever can say that they have gone into the society, sansar, and has gotten the permanent pleasure. Because whatever they got already started slipping away by the time they got it. And the moment you take it, moment you hold on to it, it starts losing its value. Nothing but nothing, inflation takes it away. All your dollar values, nothing but nothing, 1.5%, 2%, 3%, or who knows, 10%. It starts losing its value if you just hold on to it. So whatever you have, the same wife that used to be so beautiful, all of a sudden is not beautiful anymore. Same husband that used to look so handsome is not handsome anymore. So a lot of ideas, our efforts are correct, our intention is correct, we want to be happy, and the efforts that we make is also correct, in the sense that we are working hard, we're waking up in the morning, going to work, even if we don't want to, we're dropping our identification as a boss, we become an employee and run anyway, we're dropping a lot of egos to achieve a lot of things. So we cannot say that we are not working hard. Ultimately, through the wife, through the husband, through the children, through the job, through the money, we're looking for happiness. So everything is correct except the direction is wrong. They say as if you're supposed to go to the river, somebody gives a direction, you get misguided, and instead of walking to the river, you walk through the downtown. You're walking, you're looking for water, everything is correct. Your efforts are correct, your intentions are correct, but the direction is wrong. We're still using the same instrument. We know we have to use our arms and legs. We need our eyes. So we're going in that direction, utilizing our tools that we have. We use our intelligence, and you try to remember what the guy said. I have to go this way and then that way, and all those things. So all these tools we utilize all the time, but we're utilizing in the wrong direction. Just the direction has to be changed. So the sansar is full of duality. But don't misunderstand the sansar with the actual society that you're living in. And that's the biggest mistake that has happened over thousands of years, that people have decided to walk away from sansar, go to the Himalayan mountains and thinking that they will have peace. But sansar is what is in your head. Your interpretation of what is going around, the labels of good and bad and all that are created by you. And when you create those labels, you are in sansar. You leave this world and go to the jungle, you still will have my hut, my langoti, my followers, my food, your food, all those things is never going to disappear. So walking away from society does not take you anywhere. In fact, you have to be in the society to practice. If you're sitting in a jungle looking at the trees, who is there to argue with you? There is nobody. Nothing is there. There is nothing to possess. You break a branch, take a flower away. Tree is not going to complain. So it's easy to practice so-called, spirituality. But the real spirituality is the real challenge is in the society. And if that's where you don't break, your balance, your equilibrium does not break, then you have achieved something. So the yoga is to really understand what sansar is about. Sansar is something you're walking around with, something that you constantly have it 24/7. And that is the cause of suffering. That is the cause of all the wrong direction that you're going in. And labelings, good and bad, and all this is stemming from your head. So what needs to be fixed is within you. Whatever is happening outside has nothing to do with outside. It's 100% to do with you. So instead of blaming anyone or trying to fix the situation, trying to build a bigger home to think that I'll make it happy, all trying to bring Bentley and Rolls Royce and whatever, they think they will happy. It's not going to work. Fixing is all within. The guy who keeps making money, he has done it all his life, thinking he was banking on the fact that this is going to bring me the pleasure. And he keeps on, because that's all he knows, he has done it all this life. Ask him, deep inside, he's not happy either. Because as the time goes, he knows he's going to have to give up all these things. First, he went through all the struggle, how to accumulate all these things. And now, he's in a struggle to find out how to properly distribute which kid is behaving, which kid is not behaving, which investment is going to make them more money, and the kid doesn't even care. All those things just keep going, and that's called yoga and kshema. Yoga is all the efforts that you go through to accumulate things. And kshema is all the efforts to either handle it or get rid of it, whatever possessions you have accumulated. Even to keep holding on to it is a continuous struggle, because how can I keep it growing, which has been growing so far? How can I keep it away from shrinking? And where to distribute all these things? It literally occupies you. Instead of you holding on to the money, money holds you. So yoga and kshema is something that everybody does. First, you said, how can I afford to buy such and such gourmet foods that I don't have to worry about, I can do whatever I... Now the gourmet foods are bringing you diabetes. Now bringing you high blood pressure. So now you're going to the doctors. And then, so all these things, you are becoming conscious that you have to take care of it. Before, there was a time you didn't even care about your body. You ate healthy food. Like say, I came from India, right? I was 132 pounds. And I didn't even have to think about the body because my natural lifestyle was just so healthy. All the so-called good foods were too expensive. Now we realize they are bad foods. Couldn't afford. A candy bar was like 5 rupees, but 5 rupees was like $5 at that time. Who's going to pay $5 for a candy bar? Unless you have a French party or something. If you are home and you get some guests, the mom says, okay, go get thumbs up. But now we have liters and liters of Coke bottles sitting in the house. So the first day, my wife takes me to the grocery stores, and candies was 25 cents. That was my most favorite thing, right? I bought $70 worth of candies in one day. My whole fridge was filled up. So the thing is, yesterday was a very revealing thing when I was talking to one of the patients, and she says, now people are getting more health conscious, so they have to take care of it. But before, they were health unconscious. So that's why they have to become conscious.
Right.
If you have a healthy body, you don't have to worry about it. You just do certain routine things in life. And if you have a routine lifestyle, you have certain guiding principles that this is what I eat, this is what I don't. It's not an achievement by itself, believe me. But at least you have one less thing to worry about. You are not going to have to be conscious about your body. So health consciousness is a byproduct of unconscious lifestyle, basically. So if the society is becoming unconscious, as it is, that people say, oh, come on, eat that, take a couple of more pills, have an extra insulin, what's the big deal, this and that. They are in the same wagon because they themselves are unconscious about body. So they're also dragging you into that unconscious
I have
state.
Sangeeta's uncle.
Right.
He puts insulin after he eats,
Yeah,
based
right.
on how
Based
much
on
he
how
ate.
much he ate,
Oh,
right,
He
obviously.
He adjusts according to that.
Right.
Exactly.
So
So,
why eat at all? I mean,
Well,
eat indiscriminately.
well, that's wisdom. But that's wisdom. Wisdom comes later. In the body, you have a body sheath, which is the physical
Yeah.
food sheath, anandmaya kosh, right? And then it goes to the energy, the prana sheath. And then comes the mind. Mind is what's doing all these things. And after that comes the wisdom sheath, which is the intellectual sheath. And then comes the bliss, and then the self. So they have a long way to go. So they are caught up at the mind and the body level. And that's where the problem is. So health consciousness is not necessary if you keep your body in shape. And for that, you have to just follow the principles. So the choosing good and bad, you are dwelling still in the sansar. So you are not going above the sansar. You may go into the society, into the jungles, and then you can start choosing what bhaktas are bringing for you. Whether they're bringing laddu or... So that's why a lot of these Mahatmas, they have big bellies, because they're getting all free food. And they're choosing and chasing all the time. But if you believe that you want healthy food, no matter what comes on the way, you just don't eat, period. Then you have going above the sansar. So the real reason behind sansar is within you. So sansar that is within you, if you come out of it, that takes you towards Paramatma. A lot of times we blame the society for our problems and we think that I'm caught up. But what is caught up is your ego. Your ego is making mistakes. Ego makes you choose one thing over the other. I like this, don't like this. I like him, I don't like him. I like her, I don't like her. All this thing, choosing and chasing, is done by the ego. But ego is crazy. It doesn't have a vision. It's like running around monkey with blind eyes. It has no way to know. It's so full of energy. It's a gift from God. It's making you run, except it just doesn't know where to go. So the guiding light, guiding force is the intellect, beyond that. So the intellect has to rise up. But the intellect cannot rise up because you are caught up in taking care of your body, your mind, your thoughts. All these things are suffering, give you the suffering so much that you don't even have a chance to think what is right and what's wrong. So the identifications that we have is what is making us go after objects, good, bad, all those things. Because ego is what wants things. That, okay, I want this, I don't like this. All those decisions are made at the ego level. Whether it's good for or not, that's another story. So that's why children are happy all the time. Because anybody comes play with them, he will play. He isn't gonna choose or chase. For him, identification of himself has not started yet. But someday it's gonna develop. And then he's gonna suffer like you and me. Just because a child does not have identifications right now and he's happy does not mean he's happy, but it's happy because of lack of identifications, lack of identities, lack of choosing and chasing and likes and dislikes. All these things haven't started yet. And that's why children are happy. But we can be like them if we also drop our identification. If you consider yourself Hindu, then you will have a problem dealing with a Muslim guy. But if you don't consider yourself Hindu, then that guy is just another guy. Then you will not have any problem dealing with him. So all of a sudden, dropping the egos, dropping the identifications, lets you interact with people with your own internal energy, which is not divisive. It does not divide people. It binds people together. So giving up the society is easy, but giving up the sansar that is within you is very difficult because it requires death of an ego, death of your identification. That's something that you've been holding on to for millions and millions of years. And that's why it's so difficult. So you have to go within and find out what is this identification is about. As soon as somebody asks you, you have no problem saying that I am this and I am that. I'm a male, I am this short, this and that. You're describing your body. You don't even know who you are until you go within. As you go deeper and deeper, you realize that nothing exists. Your thoughts do not exist, your mind does not exist, your body becomes meaningless, and you start identifying yourself with that infinite soul. And when you identify yourself with infinite soul, you become infinite soul. And that's what you are. That's your true identity. But to reach that, you have to go through series of steps. Little by little, journey has to be taken. And when you go through the journey, and then you finish the journey, you realize that journey was like a single point, more or less. You had not gone anywhere. It's like in the dream, you might have traveled to Switzerland or whatever, and then you wake up in the morning, I didn't go anywhere. So a lot of these enlightened people, you ask them, what about those bondages that you had? What are those sufferings that you had and all that? They say it was just my mistake. It was my wrong thinking, my wrong perception, my wrong ideas that was making me feel that I was bound. You can be free even sitting in a jail, and you could be bound even outside a jail. So it's all, the bondages are at our mind level. Those are the knots of the heart, the scriptures describe as. These knots are what has tied you up inside your brain, inside your mind. And to come out of it is the yoga. So dig within and find out there is nothing like you. And the body that you had associated yourself with has no meaning really. Yesterday I was talking to a patient and she was really caught up all these things. And I said that you really so much worried about this and that and all that. All will come to an end one day, period, when you die. And then you will not be needed in the house. The next thing he says, even your husband will say that, get rid of this body, Then all of a sudden, all those identifications disappear. In a fraction of 1 second, all of a sudden you are not you. And all the life you live for your identification, you fight for your realization, you fight for your identification. My ego, I got hurt because you told me this, and she said this, and he said that, and I made this much, and all those things have no value. So I gave her a story of a Buddhist monk. I forgot his name. But he was always walking around with a human skull in his head. So somebody asked him, he says, what are you doing? He said, what is the significance of this? He says, well, once I was walking outside a town near a cemetery, and all of a sudden I bumped into this skull. And this cemetery was of very rich people, and they're noble people. So I figured that I must have insulted him. So I carry with me all the time. So out of respect, because rich people need respect, And the guy is dead and has a skull in his head. So just to make it a point that before death, everybody is different. After death, everybody is the same. So why can't we give up the ego? Why can't we, something that is going to be taken away at some point, why can't we do it now? And enjoy and communication, to set up the communication with God. God does not identify anybody different than, everybody is a creation of God. So how can God say anything different other than that? If you are the creators, you are created by God, then you are God, you're just part of it. And when something happens, it's going to be absorbed back again. But all these transitory things that you go through are just experiences, and they have no value. Just like a dream. You have a dream of flying abroad or making millions of dollars and this and that, wake up and has no value. The same way, after death, you're going to wake up and you realize that whole life was nothing but a dream. How seriously you can take the dream, right? So that's why it's worth coming out of these concepts of good and bad and judging each and every situation good and bad. It takes us into duality. The duality is the suffering. And going beyond the duality is Advait. Advait is permanent peace. And that's where you realize your true self. And the same efforts that we do, we can just, even fraction of those efforts that we're making in the world to survive and make money and make your living and all these things, even fraction of that efforts, if we direct it to go within, the reward is always there.
Infinite, yeah.
Because now you're going to be going into the infinite pool of consciousness. There was one of the representative was in my office, and he likes talking about all these things. And once we met at one of the meetings, and he says, I want to come back and we'll spend some time. And I explained to him about meditation and all that. And he says, I just can't find time with the 2 kids. And I said, I wake up in the morning and I make a living, and I just don't find time to meditate. I said, out of all this time, 20 minutes, he's spending hours and hours and hours of doing something which is going to vanish. And I'm not underestimating that. I'm not cutting down the importance of those things, also important. But there is a limit, that you can always find 20 minutes of time. And watching stupid shows on the TV and all that doesn't really give you anything. As if the whole day's drama is not enough, that in the evening
Somebody else's drama.
we have to add more dramas in our life. It's not enough. As I always say, give the example of one of my patients. She says, I can't sleep. I said, why? I don't know. I watch 6 o'clock news, 8 o'clock news, 10 o'clock news, 11 o'clock news, and then I can't sleep. I said, no wonder.
What happened to that flight? What happened to that flight?
And that's because she has no problems in life. And now she's asking for more problems. Who killed somebody, who raped somebody, who murdered somebody, this and that and all that. Somebody's making big billions. Who cares? After all, does it really matter? What is within you is what really matters. And that's where our effort should be. And we have to be selective in deciding which direction we want to go. You don't have to shut off from the other direction, but at least start waking up your inside.
That's why we come here, to go within.
Yeah, once every 10 months.
He does.
Why we come here?
He does.
Nothing for go within.
He does.
So once you stop your beliefs, your ideas, it is your ideas and your beliefs that you have to start dropping. Then you're going to stop finding faults in people. Then all of a sudden, black, red, gray, or yellow person looks the same to you, because you are walking around with the same consciousness. He also is walking around with the same consciousness. And at that level, you connect with him regardless. Stop thinking about your money, then rich or poor or anybody will be looking the same. You will have the same pleasure talking to a janitor or a CEO of the company. Doesn't matter. All those differentiating things, you cutting down your importance on all those things, all of a sudden you communicate with each other. So once you dissolve your ego and your identification, really nothing else is left but to enjoy the dance of life that is happening all around you. But we are missing it all the time. We're walking around with that Janda Uncha, Rahe Amar. And we're walking around with our ego and trying to decide which person is good for me, which person is not good for me. He is good, she is not good, this and that, and chasing and choosing and all that. All day long we're suffering, and meanwhile this beautiful world is passing you by. All the beauty of the flowers, the smiling children and innocence in their faces, and the sunrises and sunsets, and a lot of beautiful things happening. This morning we went running, me and Dr. Prakash, but he took like 5-10 minutes. So it was so beautiful. It had rained all night, and it was like 5:30 in the morning. It was nice and foggy, and those dewdrops were sticking on each and every tree. And since he said he's coming, I didn't have anything else to do, just meditate. And you synchronize, even the raindrops start giving their music to your ears. It's so peaceful, as if the world has stopped. There's so much beauty outside if we have time to look for it. And that is the creation of God. God has gifted us with so many beautiful things. Small things, we take it for granted. Our eyes can see all these things. And yet, at one time, the eyes were created in the fish for the first time. I was looking at one of the documentary. the fish were the most primitive animals which had developed under the ocean, but it could not make the prey that good. So the eyes, very primitive eyes, like a little socket, and it started giving it a view to the outside world. And then little by little, it had a color vision, then there was a depth vision. All these things started coming up. And the major change came when this fish started coming out of the water, because now all of a sudden the medium is not water anymore, it's the air. So the difference of the refraction changes a lot. So that has to be modified. So all these software changes were being made for eons and eons and eons before you got eyes. And we take it for granted. We blink, and every time we blink, the fish is blinking behind you. So we are all connected. Every single that thing that we have is a product of millions and millions of eons of evolution that has taken place. And even before the first life took place, even before all this basic material was already there, even the planet was dead, but the planet was full of matter. The if not organic, inorganic matter was there. The manganese, the cobalt and zinc and all those things were there. So you're talking about billions of years of evolution. Now you are here, and then from this point onwards, another billions of years of evolution is going to keep going. There is no stopping either way. So what are you? You are a connecting link. You are very important because you're carrying all those genes from in the back, and you're passing on to the future generation for all the people or all the animals or whatever is going to come behind. So in a way, without you, the progress cannot happen. So you are that important. At the same time, we have to realize there is a big consciousness that's doing all these things, and you are nothing but a speck of dust. So ego has no value. Realizing all these things starts dropping your ego. Whatever you're doing is not you. It is being done through you. So that's why we talked about the three important tools that we have to rise above and come out of this body consciousness. And the first we said, of course, the body. Then there is mind, and there is soul. So body and the mind is where we are caught up. The body keeps doing what the mind wants it. The mind wants to do crazy things. The body responds. And then that struggle has been going on, and that's not where the pleasure is. So that's why we talk about the bhav. The bhav is at the seat, at the level of the soul. At the higher portion of the mind is where it gets crystallized and then starts flowing outside with the love. The love connects people. And good and bad, the duality breaks up the people. So bhav, the love, and this unconditional love especially, is your exercise in this world that you can offer to the people around you. And that takes you away from your sufferings at the body and the mind level. At the body and the mind level, you are walking around with your identification. But all of a sudden, when your bhav comes into the life, the love comes into the life, all your identifications start dropping. At that level, you accept other people's deficiencies, other people's inconveniences. At some point, you start realizing that you are not the most important person in the world. Other person is. So sufferings are happening at the marital level, at the spouse level, at the children and your friends level. There is a continuous friction going on. And friction is not of you and her or you and him. The friction is your ego versus their ego. It's the fights of the ego. And egos are identifications. So if you start dropping your identifications and you say, no matter what, I'm not going to demand anything out of life. And you become true observer that, okay, I'm just going to observe what he or she wants. And then you realize for the first time the unconditionality of life, that I don't want anything out of life. What can I do to make somebody happy? And that's the direction of the flow of the thoughts starts changing. And from that, that's like a stepping stone. From that, understanding the material level of love, it starts giving the glimpse of divinity. Because if you consider that, say you have a marriage which is set up and nice and peaceful, where everybody respects each other, but that's just a stepping stone. But imagine the situation of the consciousness. Consciousness has created everything. Consciousness cannot have anything back because there is nothing to, because whatever it receives is his. Paramatma created everything. Paramatma cannot accept anything from you because there is nothing. Whatever is given to is also Paramatma. So Advait is a situation where it's all totally saturated with everything. It's infinite. As infinite contents belong to him. So giving is a nature of God. God cannot take anything, even if he wants to. If he wants to donate, write a check of $100,000, he cannot do it.
To whom?
To whom, right? And he will, again, to whom? To the temple, that belongs to him, right? So it's kind of a sad situation for him, in a way, because people take pleasure out of writing big checks and donations and this and that, but that's so flimsy. Giving is the nature of God, because that's where everything is flowing. All this source of energy is coming from him. Now, where that is coming from, nobody's going to know. But for our energy, your energy, everybody else's energy, is all coming from him. So there is a continuous flow of that energy. So there is a flow going only in one direction. That's the flow of giving. So the giving is a nature of Paramatma. So when you start respecting someone's wishes, someone's privacy, someone's freedom, and someone's likes and someone's dislikes, all of a sudden your likes and your dislikes starts minimizing. The smaller your ego, the bigger is the joy in your life. Smaller is the ego, the bigger is Paramatma in your life. And when there is no ego, it's all Paramatma. So the journey that we have to take, the bhav is considered the most important tool in life to practice. And you can do it on a day-to-day basis. Opportunities are always there to look around. That you can argue, you can fight, you can shout, but does that really do anything? You can shout and shut off somebody, but that doesn't change their mind. So instead of arguing, go within and see what you can do to bring peace in life. So other people are just as important as you are. A blade of grass is just as important as you are. A blade of grass has every right to exist just the way you are. You know, it is fake thoughts, all the fake thoughts that we have in our head, that we own this world and the world has to obey to us. Our ego makes us do that all the animals are only there for us to consume. And then we always talk about what is good for my bones and what is good for my looks, what is good for my height and what is good for my hair, as if the whole world was created for making us look better or feel stronger. And nobody asks what the animals go through, right? I was driving and one of the truck had a nice slogan written on it. It says, "I believe in a better world where chickens can cross the road and does not have to explain the motives behind it." You know, they have very good, funny things. That you say, why did the chicken cross the road? And we always cross-question the chicken. He says, why did the question? So it was making a point that I am respecting chickens for its own existence. I don't have to consume them. So the same way, I preach veganism in my practice, and I ask them only one question. He says, what if you try to catch something and it runs away? What would you do? 99 out of 100 people will say, I'll go and grab it. Because we think that everything for us is our pleasure. It doesn't matter what the other side is. Other person is alive, other person is sensitive, has its own life to live, other its own intelligence. It's a built-in model that is created out of consciousness, out of millions and millions of years of evolution. And we kill it in a second. So 99 out of 100 people will say, I'll go and grab it. And 1 out of 100 will come and give me the right answer. So this was that lady that I was talking about. She really started, she dropped her cholesterol by like 50%. From 276, she brought it down to 170. And she's the one who gave me the right answer. And the right answer was no answer. I asked her, he says, what would you do if something is trying to run away? He says, just total silence. He says, you're right. I've been doing it all wrong. Something sparked in her head. Something clicked in her head. She became vegan overnight. So those things are miraculous. And that's where the real awakening has to be needed. Awareness has to be needed. That you are important, but everybody is also important. You are unique just like everybody else. Everybody is unique. So to respect every other person's freedom is a gift that's coming from God. You are just practicing. You are a vehicle. And Krishna is the ultimate doer. Arjun is taking a back seat, and Krishna is riding the chariot of life. So somehow we're walking around all the time in that dissatisfied mode. And we feel that we have something missing that needs to be filled, as if there is like a void in our head. And I need to do something to fill it. Either it's money, or it's sex, or it's fame, or it's not enough company in my life, or whatever. We feel that there is something missing all the time. And that void can never be filled. Once you have 5 friends, or 15 friends, or 20 friends, then 20 will not be enough, then 100 friends, whatever, the money and all those things, there is an unending chase that you go through. That satisfaction is something that is sitting there all the time. When you go into the meditation and you deep go within, this satisfaction, contentment just starts coming out of from nowhere. And that huge, infinite source of contentment makes you so happy for no reason, because now you don't need objects. There is no reason to be happy. You're happy, period. And with that happiness, you walk around, you realize that all of a sudden your desires have disappeared. You don't have to win every single argument. You don't have to shut off your wife or your husband by making single. Okay, that's fine. Satisfaction is already you got. That's your milkat. That's your possession. And that's you. At that level, all the arguments go away. All the unnecessary frictions of life go away. Unnecessary desires and journey for getting more and more also goes away. And then you become so happy. That contentment, but that's within us until we work towards it. It's like an onion, you have to peel layers one by one, and you reach to the core and you become the core. And that's how the process of yoga takes. So we have to have a broader vision, and you have to start at the smaller level. Your spouse, your children, how you deal with your friends, all those things are extremely important. Walking away from them does not, actually you miss your opportunity. You miss your opportunity to practice what you could be achieving inside. So by practicing and putting in a daily life, you're doing on a daily basis, all those respecting other people's become so. So at the bhav level, it's very powerful. And at bhav level, there are a lot of things that are achievable that you yourself, supposing you have an argument with your spouse, you sit down and try to argue it out. Believe me, 8 hours, 10 hours, it still will not be solved.
I've been doing whole life. Still not.
But go within, drop your identifications, give up the desire to win. With the full awareness, start respecting someone else's wishes. The same problem can be solved very easily.
Won't they get mad more?
They can do whatever. Not necessarily not respond, not speak or anything. Understanding. I'm talking about at the understanding level, you understand what their wish are. So not arguing is one thing, but not understanding their wish is another thing. So if you start having an attitude towards that, okay, I want to help this person. If he or she is not thinking right, at least most of the times you will realize that what you were looking for was something you could not find in her or him. So it always comes back to us. We walk around with our scriptures. We think that we believe in scriptures. Our scriptures are within us. So we believe that this is what I want in life. And if my wife or my husband cannot give, then I have a problem. And because your belief is so strong that you believe that he or she has to behave in such and such way. And that's our scripture. So even all these Vedas and all that, no matter what they say, ultimately it has to go through my scripture. So everybody has their set of ideas. And that's the scripture we live by. If the scripture says the ghee is good for you, if I like the ghee, if I hate the ghee, then I'm not going to do it no matter. Even the scripture says that. This ghee is good for you. So ultimately it's your likes and your dislikes that you do. The same way, your arguments, you will realize that most of the times it's your demand that you think has to be the way it is. And this requires soul searching. When you're so caught up in arguing and all these things, you will never think that way. So going beyond that, and even a ray of your desire comes in, that I want to help, no matter what. Whether they accept or not, it's another story. But at least from one side, the demands go down. I don't want anything out of it, life. And when that happens, then other side, little by little, starts responding, and the peace comes in life. So demand is the least favorite of the society, believe it or not. Try, if you want to break a friendship, ask for money. The next time, the guy doesn't want to see you anymore. You won't put any demands on your wife, and wife gets torn apart. She doesn't have any choice. She cannot escape. She's right there. This is her house too. So, but now the wife says, now he wants this and he wants that, and vice versa. I'm not saying one or the other. But both the sides have so many demands from each other. Because demands is happiness. Demands about, you do this and I'll be happy. You do this and I'll be happy. Happiness is spiritual. It's like happiness is a reflection of God. The true, ultimate, infinite happiness is within us, and you're looking from somebody who is so transient, somebody who keeps on changing, somebody who used to look so beautiful, now doesn't look beautiful anymore, and yet you want her to be, and that's why you cannot be satisfied, or whatever, other reasons also. So you're looking for ocean in a pot. A small pot, you're looking for an ocean. You're not going to get it. Infinite is within you. And meanwhile, trying to correct the situation by fixing people and all that, you're missing your opportunity to move ahead toward the spiritual journey. You all have ocean within you, and that ocean is reachable. You are a river, and sooner or later, you're going to reach that ocean. But even Khalil Gibran wrote a beautiful poem, and he says that even when the river meets the ocean, and for a moment, it kind of hesitates before it meets the ocean. Because, and it's all poetic, because it has gone through, it came from all those snow-capped mountains. It kept jingling around, dancing around, and saw all those valleys and beautiful flowers, and it went through all these guards, people worship, throw flowers in there, all those things, and with all the love and respect. But still, it was bound by the two banks, river banks were binding them. You had an identity, you had a name, you had everything. And now you're going to go into the ocean. Who's going to come? It's all ocean.
Yeah.
Nobody worships you anymore.
Yeah, you
Nobody
worship
comes and
like
gives the offerings. There you don't have any chance to dance your own dance. You're dancing with the dance of the ocean. What is left? So it just says for a moment it hesitates to give up the identity. But when it does, it drops itself and becomes the ocean. So that infinite consciousness is within us only if we drop our identifications. And it's natural that we hesitate to do that because we have been holding on to it. Our journey has been going for thousands and thousands of miles. It's not easy not to be identified as a Ganga or Mississippi or whatever. So we drop something, but we get a lot more. And we are looking for that in ordinary people, just like you and me. We both are ordinary at the human level, and they don't have capacity to give you. So stop asking for it. And that's where the suffering, you ask for it. You keep looking at a beautiful girl, she doesn't want to see you anymore. You do that. And when you don't even look at her, she respects you, that he's a nice guy. He's a gentleman. Right? This society is like that. When you don't want anything from society, society bends and gives you everything.
Yeah.
The more you want, the less you get.
Namagi dodtu aave.
Exactly. Right. So the real rising of a personality happens when you say that I am self-sufficient. Whatever I need, I will create myself. And whatever I create myself and whatever I can, I'll be happy with it. Whatever I cannot, I will let go. That's fine too. But I definitely would not want anything from anyone. Whether it's somebody's beauty that attracts me, I don't want it. I'm happy the way I am. So all those ideas ultimately drive you towards the self, your own self. So that's why I said that all these sheaths that we are finding identifications is because we have identified with it for such a long time. Higher and higher sheaths will be needed to get you off that. So our attachment to the physical sheath and the energy sheath, which is the Annamaya Kosh and the Pranamaya Kosh, we play with all energy. Energy, we use it every single day. The body is the Annamaya Kosh because it's derived from food, and once it stops existing, it becomes food also. So it's all nothing but food. Body is food. Body is your gulfi. Body is your that you ate. Everything is all about is food. But it is controlled by your energy. Energy makes it go different places. So it's your internal energy. The energy controls the body. So as you grow higher, the sheaths keeps getting more and more subtle, more and more powerful to control. Only the powerful sheath will control the less powerful. The body has less capacity. It can run 13 miles an hour. It can climb mountain at such and such a speed. But then energy is the one that is behind it. But behind the energy is the thoughts. So that's your Manamaya Kosh. That's your mind. Mind controls the energy. Energy controls the body, right? But then the mind is where most of the people are stuck. Oh, I cannot stop thinking. I have this and I have that and all that. So beyond the mind is the wisdom, the Vijnanmaya Kosh. And then that's the intellect, the seat of intellect. And to go higher from the mind, the intellect has to come into the picture that what am I doing? All of a sudden you're standing aside and now you're analyzing your own life. That, okay, so far I've been arguing, so far I'm doing this. Is it taking me anywhere? No. If you realize that, then you start backing off. And that's when you realize that everybody has to be respected. And all this raising the intellect purifies your actions, purifies your mind. And once the mind is purified, the energy is utilized and the body does the actions. So all these purifications comes from higher and higher and higher sheaths. So bhav starts coming out at the intellect level. Intellect lets you decide, but intellect also can be purified or not purified, because intellect will make you the realize that bhav and all that, but bhav also can get carried away. Bhav is very powerful. Bhav is more powerful than your thoughts, your actions, your arguments. All those things have no value, but a little smile sometimes does the trick. Appreciation, little appreciation, thank you, will do the trick. So all these little things matter exponentially in a big way. I'll give you an example. Sushma, when we had gone to St. Martin, from St. Martin there is another island called Seba. So we went to Seba for a day trip, right? It was a small, like 15 passenger plane that takes you. And we made that, and at that time my son Shanil used to play with swords, the plastic sword. He had an idea, he was a He-Man, right? So he was playing with a plastic sword. So we reached to Seba, we come out of the plane, he forgot because we had put it up on the aisle, right? So forgot, we came out of the plane, and then 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later he tells, Mom, where's my sword? So meanwhile, the plane is taking a journey already.
Right.
It's already on the runway. I would not have done it. Sushma went in front of the plane. And he says, no, stop. My son's sword is there. Believe it or not, they stopped. They got the sword. I said, the plane will be coming back. We'll pick it up. He says, no, you don't know. Meanwhile, who will take it? It's my son's sword. So the bhav creates the power. Bhav empowers you. Bhav brings out the best in you. Once you start realizing that I am not important, other person is more important than me, then his or her likes and dislikes become more important for you. Then all of a sudden my desires and my becomes a non-issue. But what can I do to do something which is good for the other person? What I can do? All of a sudden the power, the energy starts springing from within you. Then he says, let me fix this. So now the flow of thoughts is like changed 180 degrees. Now you are utilizing your inside soul to carry out the actions outside for someone else. So far, the same energy you are utilizing to ask for things. That what can you do for me? I'm not happy. Why didn't you do this? Why did you do this? All those arguments, and then poor girl or poor husband can do certain things. All those where we're losing and bickering and fighting and all these things. All that energy was being wasted. Same energy, no difference. Energy is the same. The electricity in the tube light or in the radio or in a computer is the same energy. But which way we utilize is all that matters. So we were utilizing for our satisfaction. Now, for a fraction of a second, you start thinking that maybe other person also needs some attention. Maybe I can do it. So it brings out the energy. It comes with the same person cannot do. If I tell Sushma to go out and in a cold, she says, no, it's too cold. But when the deers are out there to feed the deers, she will do anything. She will put a coat on. She will walk on the ice and this and struggle, then go and deliver the food to the deer. And she said, then when she was on vacation, she says, when I came back, and she says, you didn't take care of the deers. Look at them; they're so thin now. As if without her, the deers would have gone hungry or dead. So imagine the power of bhav. Bhav is a lot more powerful than your day-to-day actions, your intelligence, that so-called intelligence, that's not even yours. You borrow all this knowledge from other people, and then you argue and then fight, and all these things have no value until the bhav is reached at. Then, for the first time in your life, you start realizing the quality of life that you could live. Without that quality, you would have missed out a lot. So the efforts, you always make efforts to make yourself right. Who is really fighting? It's your ego. It's not you. You are that consciousness. But your ego is fighting to maintain its existence. So who is correct? I am correct or you are correct. And all those suffering goes on all the time. But there is not a single ray of love in that, and has no value. There is so much bitterness. And you live your life, you wake up in the morning, the same way you sleep at night, and then by the time the life comes, and that moment of pleasure, the real joy of love, you never experience. So dropping your identification is extremely important. So all those sheets where the Vignanmaya Kosh, at Vignanmaya you start realizing, and then the direction starts changing in your life. Even if 2 degree, for sure. But down the road, you will be in a better shape, and your life will be more productive, more enjoyable than what it used to be. So Vignanmaya Kosh takes you there, but then beyond is another story. We'll talk about it later. So bhav is located at the transition of the purification at the mind level and a little bit at intellect level. But that makes you realize that what your lower sheets were making you suffer so far. So now you start realizing that you have to go higher to experience that. So respecting other people's needs, likes, dislikes, their freedom, all these things are fundamentally important. It's the fundamental democratic attitude that you can have. Every person has the right to exist. Every person has a right to express their ideas and opinions, disregarding their caste, their appearance, or beliefs, or anything like that. So all those things which are dividing us, all of a sudden start uniting. And the same extension, imagine this kind of love for your son or for deers, and you multiply millions of times. It expands. It expands into everyone around you and to the whole universe. Imagine the life of a bliss that you can have. So stop looking for pleasure outside. The pleasure is billions of times in a more proportion existing within us. But you're not going to get it until you take a first step to go within. That's why the God says, I can make you rich, but you have to buy the lotto ticket, right? If you don't buy it, how can I make you rich? Like that. So going within is very important. Our likes, our dislikes, even our shastras that we call shastras, we have to drop our requirements. We think that this is what is going to making me happy, and that's not going to make us happy in the outside world. So we can try for like 24-hour segments at a time, where you become true observer of everything. For 24 hours you decide that I'm just going to be a silent observer and just observe things. Instead of bringing my wishes and my demands into the picture, I'll just watch. Even if I cannot do anything about the other person, fine. But at least the flow of the thoughts take a break. And at that level, and with a little bit practice and expanding, the bhav and the love starts flowing. And that's the ultimate, the treat that you can have out of spiritual journey. And then, of course, we have to go higher. But this is the first step you have to take. Without that, you cannot go anywhere. So much for today.
Thank you.